any extreme is negative. If you're too abusive, obviously that's going to be a negative, but if you're too perfect as a parent, like you show this perfect image, that's also negative to children, because that's not how the world works. It's a false view of how the world is. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Mitzi, and today we're going to talk about the subtle signs that show that your good childhood wasn't so good. One of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because as a coach, I often will talk to my clients and be like, okay, you're having these problems, let's get to the root, what's going on? You know, I'll talk about their childhood and be like, you know, I had great parents. And the thing is, there's a disconnect. That's why I wanted to go into today. What does it mean if you think you have good parents, but you have these issues? So if you're watching this video, you probably are someone that have recognized some issues in yourself, whether it's you've recognized you're having relationship issues, you're having issues with how you feel about yourself, you're having issues with your day-to-day, your work, and you're having some of these issues. And you may have researched it or maybe gone to therapy and you're trying to deep dive, like, what's wrong? Like, why am I having these issues? And oftentimes you'll see, when you do start to deep dive, they'll ask you, you know, what was your childhood like? What happened? What was your dynamic with your parents? And if you're someone that was made to believe that you had good parents, they'll be like, oh no, like, it's not my parents, it's not a parent's issue, there's got to be something else is going on. But here's the thing, there's only specific type of problems that are affected in childhood, and it has to do with your parental, you know, you and your parents' dynamic. Your parents have important roles, really important roles in your life in childhood, especially for the first 8 years of your life. And things that they do and things that they don't do can really harm you. There are specific types of wounds that are only affected when you have a parent, a mother or a father wound. And those things are like negative self-talk. And it's not only, I'll backtrack. It's negative self-talk can also come from like teachers and all these things, but there's specific types of negative self-talk where you primarily hear like the negative voices of your parents on you. So that if you have self-discipline issues, if you have self-soothing issues, if you can't emotionally regulate, if you have fear of abandonment, or you feel like you have to be perfect all the time. These are some core things that show like, you know, you most likely have a mother or a father wound. And there's other issues as well that are like specific to mother or father wounds. The role of the mother is to teach you how to regulate your emotions and to provide emotional safety and to help guide you when it comes to your emotions. Then your father is more of like the physical safety. He's someone there to help you with like discipline and respect, and someone that's supposed to make you feel protected in the world. And if you don't have those things in your life, then, or you don't have those roles, if those roles aren't met for you and your needs aren't met, then that's going to cause a wound inside of you. And what we also have to understand, it doesn't always have to be what they did, it also could be what they didn't do. So it doesn't mean that you had to have a parent that was like emotionally abusive or verbally abusive or hit you or, you know, sexually touched you. It doesn't have to be those things. It could be also things that they didn't do. They didn't provide for you. They didn't provide nurturing. They didn't provide warmth. They didn't provide the love that you needed. They didn't, you know, talk to you, or like they only cared about your physical well-being and not your emotional well-being. It could be the things they didn't provide that really affect you. So why is it that you will think that you had a good childhood? And it's not to say that you had to have like a traumatic, worst of the worst childhood, but like I said, if you're having issues, then you most likely didn't have as good of a childhood as you were made to believe. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, your parents may have told you over and over, like, you have such good parents, you have a great life, and like this was ingrained in you over and over again, and to be grateful, and that it could be worse and you could be abused, and it could, there's children that suffer more than you. So this was ingrained in you of like, oh, I had a great upbringing, I had good parents. Another thing that is, you actually had a really good parent, but they were too perfect to the point where they didn't teach you the negatives of life, and they didn't show you when they were down. They didn't show you when they were sad or when they were angry or when they were feeling any negative or uncomfortable moments in their life or their emotions. So they were too perfect to the point where you now will feel shame or anxiety or depression or feel bad for you having bad moments in your life, because they just always seemed perfect. They always had cookies in the oven, or they were always able to go to work and be the perfect dad or the perfect mom, and they had this appearance of perfectness, and that can cause you to believe you had such good parents. And it's not that they're bad because they didn't teach you how to navigate through the negatives in the world. It's that they lacked. They were lacking in that area, and that caused you to have some inner child wounds, because any extreme is negative. If you're too abusive, obviously that's going to be a negative, but if you're too perfect as a parent, like you show this perfect image, that's also negative to children, because that's not how the world works. It's a false view of how the world is. Another reason is because we have something called self-preservation, and thinking that we had a bad childhood or that our parents weren't what we thought they were can be really traumatizing on a child. And so because of that, that inner child goes with you into adulthood, and you still want to maintain that belief that your parents were good, because it hurt too much to face the reality that your parents weren't as good as you thought. So you will see your parents in a better light than they actually are to comfort yourself through the fact that they aren't. Because children need to feel safe, or the world becomes terrifying, because they're helpless. They need people to depend on and trust. And so when you don't have that, you feel like you could die, like you're scared. So one way some children deal with that is that they view their parents, and actually I think it's more children than you'll realize, they view them as better to be able to survive their childhood and be like, okay, no, my parents, like, they love me, they got me, they're not as bad. They're just doing that because, you know, I'm doing something wrong. And then you blame it on yourself and you think you're the problem and you're bad, when in reality it's your parents. And then you, like I said, you continue and you take that on into adulthood, and you still view them in that same light because you haven't faced that painful reality. Because it's like, it feels very like a huge betrayal, and you're trying to avoid that betrayal. Once you deal with betrayal, the world looks completely different, and you want to avoid that. So you will continue on thinking that they are better than they actually are. So you may view your parents as good because they provided for your physical needs, or they were there and they let you stay in their house. It could be as extreme as that. Or they did talk to you occasionally, or they, you know, drove you places, or, you know, you might see them as like, oh no, they were really good to me. But in reality, there were things that they lacked, and you don't know what having healthy parents is. You only can compare what you know. And what you know is like, okay, my parents provided me in some sort of way, but you are not realizing or understanding where they have lacked in your life and where they have hurt you. And there's so many subtle things that they could have done. Like, they could have stifled your growth by not allowing you to explore the world, or infantilize you, where they made you, they tried to treat you younger than you were, or they parentified you, where they tried to give you too many responsibilities, or they enmeshed you where they made it so that way you had to have the same exact views as them, and if you didn't, you would be punished. Or they could have just neglected you emotionally and not talked to you about your life and what you need emotionally to feel good, or they didn't teach you how to regulate your emotions. There's so many things that they didn't provide for you, or they didn't show you how to deal with negative things in the world and show that they too are human and they have negative times. So because of that, that can hurt you. And I have so many videos on mistreatment in childhood, like inner child wounds, mommy and daddy issues. You can see all of those and see if you can relate to any of them. But what you can do moving forward is try to, one, look what a healthy relationship is with a parent. What should they have provided you? Because sometimes it can be hard to realize until you realize what you didn't have and see what was missing. And then once you do that, you can see why you have the problems that you have. Like when you don't have this, what is the effect? How does it affect you? And then you can put things together. I also have coaching, which we can dive deep into things. If you're ever interested in doing my one-on-one sessions, we can dive deep into things to kind of figure out what's going on. And once you realize the effects on you, then you can start to heal. You can see, okay, this is the effect. What is the solution? For instance, you have fear of abandonment. Okay, now you will start to deal with your insecure attachment and start to deal with loving yourself and attending to more of your needs. Or if you're avoidant, you start to see that relationships aren't so scary and not to be so ashamed. If you have a hard time emotionally regulating, you can realize like, oh, I need to learn how to emotionally regulate. But it first comes down to facing that your parents weren't as perfect as they were and identifying the issues and where they were lacking, and then moving forward from there. Self-reflecting, journaling, doing all those things can be really beneficial and helpful. And it will be painful. This stuff is not easy. It hurts bad. But the reality is that it's there. Knowing isn't the problem, because at deep subconsciously, you know, you're just not bringing it to the surface to deal with. So now it's time to deal with it. So it's no longer keeping you stuck or trapped, because this stuff is keeping you trapped. That's why you can't move forward. You can't deal with any of your issues. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. It's Missy, and today I thought we would talk about, I don't know what we're talking about.